All right, so I recently made a set of matching Damascus, twisted Damascus steel with whale tooth handles. And quite honestly, it's a lot of work to, one, make a Damascus knife, but two, it's a lot of work because I'm trying to make a pair. Now, the consequence of making those knives, I had enough scrap between those two knives to turn around and basically increase the layer count. I want to say I started with 10 layers or 10 scrap pieces of twisted Damascus at approximately 200 layers. So I got these in the billet here, and over the next couple minutes you're going to see me take that thing in and out of the forge. I want to say it's 46 times. Each one of them is approximately a minute of me smashing on this thing and drawing it out. So if you ever wondered why Damascus costs so much, the reason is it's a lot of extra work. When I compare it to just a standard cut and grind knife, it's a lot more intensive and a lot more work. I've got about 42-ish minutes of me pounding on this thing. That doesn't include the previous 3 hours of me making the original Damascus this came from. Like I said, these are scrap cut-offs. So you add that time. Right now it's sitting in a bucket of vermiculite, and it's annealing. It's becoming soft so that I can work and grind it. I don't forge knives to completion. I've already spent a plethora of time just getting my Damascus to a billet that I just, quite frankly, I don't have it in me to forge out the rest of the knife. So I just turn it into a billet and then I cut and grind from there. On the cut and grind side, two ways, right? One is just make your pattern, scratch it on there, take it to a saw or a file or however you want to do it, and you take away everything that doesn't look like a knife. And then you take it to the grinder and you grind away again everything that doesn't look like a knife. Then you grind the blade, and then you put it in for heat treating. You heat treat it, and then you clean it up, and then you put a handle on it, and then somewhere in there you're going to sharpen it and make a sheath for it. That whole process, if I'm doing the cut and grind from scratch, takes me about 2 to 2.5 hours. If I'm doing one of my production blades where I have it, the preform, the blank is laser cut for me, then that cuts my time down to about 45 minutes. That's 45 minutes of me physical hand-on making knife. I'm trying to run a business. That's the way to go, honestly. For the cost of the material, the time, the lack of extra resources, laser cut and grind you couldn't ask for a better knife. There's no issues or flaws with the steel, and I can, on a production scale, make it significantly cheaper than anything else. Every time I make Damascus steel, I lose money. When I say I lose money, is I got to go buy enough steel, cut it down, forge or weld it together, then forge weld it, and then draw it out. And you'll see in the process all those flakes that are coming off. That's all loss. I lost probably about a third of the mass just to the scale that flakes off during the forging process. When I do a cut and grind knife, I don't have that loss. And if I do the laser, I really don't have that loss. The laser is zero loss for the most part to me. Cut and grind is maybe 15% loss, right? Because everything that you cut away. But Damascus, right? So I make a billet, and then I got to make it large enough, one, that I have enough material in the end. So I usually forge my stuff approximately 2 inches wide and about 10 inches long, and that covers most of the knives that I make. Right? So if I start off with 20 layers, I cut and stack that into 5 pieces, that gives me 100. And then I'll cut and stack that in half, and that gives me my 200. And then from there, I'll twist it, and then I'll pound that thing out to approximately 2 inches wide, 10 inches long, and under a 1/4 inch thick. And then I'll take it to the grinder, and then I'll grind it all away, and I'll look for flaws, and if I have flaws, then it's a complete loss. If I don't have flaws, then I can proceed to cut and grind the rest of the knife out. As a consequence of doing all that, I do get a lot of Damascus scrap, and every now and then I'll take those and I'll forge weld them together and do something. The easiest for me is what I call stacked twisted Damascus. So anywhere from 4 to 10 layers. I think this is the biggest stack I've done in a while. But that's 10 times 200. So there's 2,000 layers, ideally, right? I know that every time I cut and re-weld, I have to grind down to bare metal and then make that weld again. And every time I strike with a hammer, I lose a bit of that metal, the slag that pops off. So I say 200 layers. 200 layers is the count. I know I'm probably closer to 150-ish, right, of all the micro layers that pop off. So on this 2,000 layer piece here, I would assume I've lost a good anywhere from 100 to 200 layers in just the forging process. And then on top of that, once I start grinding and everything else, I'm going to lose probably another 200 to 300 layers on top of it. So actual layers, probably 1,000. Like numbered by material and count, about 2,000 layers went into the build that you see me working. The whole process here is keeping it hot and drawing it out. I have a tear in my left and my right elbow, and I have a tear in my shoulders, so I can only work the billet for about 35 to 40 seconds before I'm gassed, and then I put it back in the forge and I come sit down for a minute, stretch out my arm while it gets back up to temperature, and then I pound on it again for about another 30 seconds to a minute. This whole process here, 40 something times is me taking this thing in and out. You can just kind of see the process of me drawing it out to the shape. And the last, I would say 10 to 15 heats is just really refining the thickness, the overall size, trying to get the max length out of it. Again, every time I take it in and out, I'm losing material. So if you wonder why Damascus costs more, is because it takes more. It takes more material, it takes more time, it takes more resources, and it's taxing. It's quite taxing on the body to sit here and forge it out. I would much rather do a cut and grind or a laser blank and grind knives, because I think they're a better knife. Aesthetically, probably not, but as far as function goes, there's nothing wrong with the perfect steel that I got from the steel company. Every time I bring this in and out, there's a possibility of a crack. There's a possibility of it being too hot and burning out all the carbon. There's a possibility of it just falling off if I'm not paying attention. Just 2,000 layers, so that's 2,000-ish times that I could have developed a flaw in the process. And I don't know until I get it all cleaned up into the grinder and flat and straight, and then I can say, yep, I can make a knife out of this or no. So it's a gamble. It's a pretty big gamble, because it doesn't turn out every time. Which kind of becomes, that's the cost, right? I like making Damascus, but it's taxing on my body. It's really pretty stuff, but it just costs more, and it's hard to sell a knife at what I value my time. If I can make a knife in an hour to 2 hours, right, and I charge my shop rate, yeah, I'm making money. And when I say I'm making money, I'm really just buying enough to maybe make another knife, as well as buy new sanding belts and new buffer wheels, pay for the electricity, pay for the propane, pay for the drill bits and the handle material, right? That's about all I get out of it. Sometimes I do real well and I make a little extra money, but most of the time it's just enough to pay for the knife that I made, pay for a second knife, and some stuff around the shop, right? The consumables that get used up while I'm in here. And honestly, I'm doing it so that I can hopefully find a knife that I can say, hey, this is the knife, and then I make my knife, and then I don't do this anymore. So there will probably come a day where I don't make any more knives. It's just just the reality of the process, right? I've been on this pursuit for about 15 years. I'll wear a knife for 3 to 6 months. I'll test it out. I'll usually sell it at a discount. But I'm testing. I'm trying to figure out what makes the best all-around usable knife. Regardless of what I want to do with it, the knife does what I ask it to do. For the use of a knife. It's not a pry bar, not a screwdriver, but for the use of the knife. I need to be able to process an animal. I would like to be able to start a fire. If I want to carve or whittle something, that would be nice too. Right? Every day, just wear and tear. How long does this particular steel or design, how long does it wear? Can I use it for 6 months to a year every day and get max use out of it, or does it just a pain in the butt? So it's a process of figuring out what the best handle material is, what the best blade steel is, what's the most efficient, what's the most rugged. Because every 4 months the weather changes and we go from extreme hots to extreme colds and extreme wet to extreme dry. And to have a knife that does well in all those environments, and if you go to the coastal environment where there's a lot of salt, does it provide enough protection against that, or can I maintain it well enough while I'm in that environment? Same thing in the wintertime. Does the handle material hold up to the cold? Does it hold up to extreme cold? If I drop below zero, do I risk breaking the tip of my knife because of the quality of steel? I've had a lot of knives being shipped all over the world. I've had them used for a variety of purposes, and it's just this pursuit, I guess, of trying to find what works the best for the most amount of things that I'm asking a knife to do. I think I'm getting close. I just don't ever know. But we'll finish up here with the video. The last little bit that I'm doing here is just kind of hammering out the dings in there so it's as flat and true as possible, and I'm getting the most use out of it. The last little bit here is I'll get it up to just above quenching temperature, and I'll